Hey, it's your boy Efren Tinoco coming at you from Midtown Memphis. Had to pick up a couple scripts while I was here. But anyhow, so today is the 7th of May 2025, and I am giving you a post Cinco de Mayo reflection. Well, first of all, some, not all, probably about half of everybody who was overcrowding the Mexican restaurants around town to such extent that they brought out extra chairs and tables and porta potties out in their parking lots. About half of you, maybe more, don't know that it's not Mexican Independence Day, even though you can correctly say that Mexico won its independence from Spain. But no, the Cinco de Mayo was the commemoration of a very unlikely victory of a Mexican cavalry unit over invading French forces at the city of Puebla, which today is about an hour and 15 minutes drive to the east of Mexico City. So invading French forces were headed to Mexico City. And they didn't make it. And they gave basically the Mexican Republic enough time to consolidate and resist the succeeding French invasions. Now, why did the French come over? Because the U.S. was distracted in its own civil war. Cinco de Mayo, that Battle of Puebla, took place on the 5th of May, of course, 1862. So the U.S. was embroiled in its civil war, and the French were looking to take advantage of that to create a protectorate in Mexico, and also to assist the Confederacy, because of course, with the big border of Texas and arguably New Mexico, the Confederacy bordered Mexico, and so basically the French could eventually skirt the blockade to access southern cotton, and actually give them material assistance, and probably even direct military assistance when they were to take over the entirety of the Mexican territory, which, thanks to the efforts of one Benito Juarez, did not happen. So, if we are to celebrate, I'm all for it. I am all for the United States, the people of the United States, even though it's only within their capacity to celebrate by drinking tequila. Yes, to celebrate the historical relationship between Mexico and the United States. It can be a win-win. And the circumstances surrounding the Civil War and the resistance to the establishment of the Second Mexican Empire by the French prove it. It can be a win-win relationship. The official policy of the State Department, our foreign policy towards Mexico, officially, since Clinton, has been to establish Mexico as a subordinate. It is not a win-win. Now, there's been periods of off and on very good relations with respect to constructiveness, where the U.S. was hands-off and Mexico was able to elect good leaders, right, without U.S. interference, that were nationalistic. Basically, John F. Kennedy, and during the with his good neighbor policy, and Ronald Reagan. Now, I don't have a lot of agreement with Ronald Reagan as a president of the United States, but as a president who maintained certain relations with Mexico, I'm in agreement with him. But ever since NAFTA, up until 2018, it went very sour. Very sour, actually. And the policy of Zbigniew Brzezinski, one of the advisors to Bush, I believe, and Clinton, actually Clinton, I think, was that we don't want Japan on our southern border. In other words, the United States does not want a economically integrated advanced economy, advanced economy. Now, mind you, Mexico is about the same population as Japan, but there is two things that make it very distinct from Japan. Three. One, the territorial expanse. Number two, let me not count backwards here. Number two, the natural resources at its disposal. And number three is the youthful and fertile demography of Mexico. Those are all recipes for strong and sustained economic expansion. However, along various fronts, that is not the case. And that is very much, basically Mexico grew too big and too democratic and too sophisticated right now for the U.S. to maintain it as a client state. And now there's a couple of there's a big idea floating around right now, and very unfortunate given the proximity to Cinco de Mayo when this was floated, and that is to invade Mexico. Why? It is to fight the drugs and to keep drugs from entering. First of all, I'm making a direct appeal to all Mexican Americans, all 20 million plus bilingual, bicultural Mexican Americans like myself. Those of you who want to see both countries win, those of you who are English literate, to insert ourselves into all of these spaces that are advocating for war, that are for invasion, that are spreading lies about how the Mexican government is corrupt and and subject to the cartels, how the Mexican territory is controlled by the cartels. All lies. I don't need to get into the details. I will tell you that they are lies. I go to Mexico 3-4 times a year without incident into a place that would be one of the most strategic corridors for drug trafficking, yet life is normal. That's where basically my family is from, and that's where I go, to the state of Coahuila. And why is it important for us to get in these spaces, in the darkest corners, and sometimes not the darkest corners of internet and mainstream media commentary? Even if it's the lunch, the lunch counter or the water cooler or the break room, we have to fight this narrative. Think about the zeal with which supporters of the current modern state of Israel in their eradication of Palestinians in Gaza, think about how zealous they are for, I will submit to you as a very morally troubling and questioning campaign. So much so as to divide them from religious Jews. Okay? I will tell you that we need to insert ourselves into these spaces and take over this narrative, because, do your research, the United States is not doing its part to fight drugs. The United States is not doing its part to fight organized crime and cartels. In fact, what's coming to light is that some people in the United States, especially those centered around petroleum refining, are dealing with Mexican organized crime to steal Mexican petroleum, transported to U.S. refineries, re-exported back to Mexico to their own outlets, like say Valero, to their own gas stations, their own U.S. brand gas stations, and or exported to third countries like Japan. You don't believe me? Well, 2 ships have been caught with stolen petroleum, stolen gasoline, classified in shipping documents as used petroleum distillates to avoid tariffs and taxes. And along with these shipments are this big, hundreds of thousands of barrels of oil, are vehicles and automatic weapons, with the blessing of the U.S. petroleum industry in conjunction with the cartels. One particular one based out of Guadalajara. If the United States comes into Mexico, they will have several aims. None of them will be to fight drugs, because obviously we haven't had a coherent campaign to fight addiction in the United States. We haven't seen the size, tons at a time interdiction of drug material or finished product like we have in Mexico. Haven't seen that. Okay. We haven't seen, what we have seen though is calls to use special forces to take out the cartels. We've seen, and who's been calling this? The DEA, Republican political operatives. Elon Musk. Why is Elon Musk trying to do this? Okay. Because obviously not every multi-billionaire, not every centibillionaire like Bill Gates or Warren Buffett is on the border trying to do performative politics for invasion. This is why Elon Musk wants to pry from Mexican hands the lithium reserves that have been nationalized, and possibly maybe even install a person in charge of Mexico who would open lithium mining and processing to U.S. Elon Musk ownership, instead of having to buy finished batteries from the government of Mexico, instead of having Mexico develop models of electric cars that would compete directly with Tesla models, which is what is happening. This is what Elon Musk stands to lose many, many billions of dollars over what Mexico is doing for its own people. It's not about the border. It's not about peace at the border. The United States is not doing anything to quit the flow of immigrants. They're trying to have Mexico do their dirty work as a result of the U.S. own policies of making life so miserable in Cuba, Venezuela, Haiti, Nicaragua, that their people are forced to leave. And many of them, of course, show up at the U.S. border looking to cross. If the United States were serious about solving drugs, it would have arrested many, many more people who are U.S. based who distribute the drugs. The drugs don't magically appear at your doorstep once they cross the border. Americans pick them up and take them. Americans pick them up in large part from Mexico and bring them back, because Americans can always cross the border in both directions freely. It's not immigrants. It's not immigrants who bring drugs. Distressed immigrants are the worst people to bring drugs over the border. The worst people you can count on to bring drugs to the border, because they're actually, in many cases, trying to avail themselves to authorities and, of course, be searched. So, anyhow, find out more about the topics I'm bringing up. Insert yourself into these spaces zealously. We need to change, and write your congressperson. Like mine, I happen to have Republican senators that are very anti-Mexican here in the state of Tennessee. You know, start the conversation. Change the conversations. We need a different foreign policy. We need it to be harder. Even it's not easy. We need it to be much harder to F with Mexico and Mexicans and Mexican Americans. And we don't need to wait until an invasion starts. This is your boyfriend Tinoco giving you good information on this 7 de Mayo 2025. Hasta luego. Bye-bye.